Hello everyone, today I will show a 5-0 run in Open Master League and my first opponent is Snarfleparf. But this game is short and not that interesting, so I will talk briefly about the team instead of the gameplay. So this team is very solid since all three of the Pokemon can handle both Giratina and Dialga, which are very common, and Best Buddy Dialga is an amazing safe switch. One interesting lead matchup that sadly isn't shown in this run is against Dialga, and in that matchup I shield the first Iron Head and then go for Flamethrower with togekiss, which usually gets shielded, and just before the second Iron Head I switch into Dialga and take the second Iron Head, and then I have a Dialga and togekiss with 60% HP each and a full HP Groudon against his last two in a 1-1 shield scenario. Next up is a game against Gigantamax, and he leads with Giratina Origin Form against Togekiss, so this is a good matchup, but maybe not as great as you would expect a fairy to perform against a dragon, since it's fairly equal in both 0 and 1 shield scenarios. But I expect the switch, so I'm ready with the switch menu, but he doesn't switch, so I go for the bait instead. I'm fishing for a boost and hoping that he would shield if he expects the aerial ace, but he goes for the 0 shield scenario, and then as soon as I see Melmetal I switch into Dialga, which is what I usually do if my opponent leads Melmetal against Togekiss. But this is arguably a misplay, since Groudon performs so much better against Melmetal. But he sends in his own Dialga, so I will be able to take back the shield advantage that he gained with Melmetal, and then I will have to put all my trust in Groudon to finish this game, with 2 positive matchups left. So I will straight up shield the first one, and then I need to catch the second Iron Head and overfarm a ton of energy to have a lot of energy against the Melmetal. So here I am up to 99 energy and go for the Fire Punch, and then just before he reaches the next Iron Head I use another Fire Punch, and then I'm much closer to Earthquake than he is to Superpower. So I'm able to finish this game, even though I didn't play correctly. My next opponent in game number 3 is Hori, and he leads with Giratina Origin Form, so this is a slightly positive matchup for me, and he safe switches into Mewtwo. And this is not that good for me since I don't have any clean counterplay against Mewtwo. So I shield the first move and it turns out to be a Flamethrower. And that is something that I don't recommend in Masters League, even though it's good against Melmetal. But I definitely prefer Focus Blast for one-shotting things or Shadow Ball for the mirror. But it is what it is, and now I have a shield deficit and some extra energy, so I will be able to reach the Draco Meteor, but he is also over farming a ton, and I can't switch here because then I will have to deal with the Melmetal with my Togekiss. So I wait for him to spend his energy on Dialga, and then I will send in Groudon and tank 2 superpowers, and then he switches into Giratina Origin Form and I go into Togekiss. So this is not quite over yet, since he will need 2 more charge moves with Melmetal on Groudon to win the game. So what I do is I stop hitting so that Melmetal can't farm down the last bit of HP on Togekiss, so that he is less likely to reach 2 charge moves with Melmetal. And here I go for the Earthquake, since if he expects the bait I simply just win. And if he is shielding, then if he uses a superpower, then a Fire Punch will be enough to KO. So here, when I saw the superpower, I go straight for the Fire Punch, since it is in Fire Punch range. And even though I'm at an Earthquake, but the game is kind of inconsistent with overtaps after charge moves, so I go for the safe play. The next game in this set is against Nagisa Osaki, and this is where it becomes interesting since she leads with Melmetal, which is a very hard counter to Togekiss, and it also soft counters Dialga. And the only play Dialga has against Melmetal is to shield the first superpower, and then the Melmetal will need 3 more charge moves instead of 2. So after the second superpower, my opponent switches and into a Groudon, which is also a fairly good Dialga counter. So I will definitely save my shield for Groudon later in the game. And here I send in Togekiss, since it will deal a ton of damage with Charm, and I will definitely not shield anything here, since Togekiss is dead meat against Melmetal anyway in the end of the game. So I'm ready for the switch. I'm hoping that my opponent will switch back into Melmetal, but he used one more Fire Punch before switching, and this is an okay situation, I guess. I don't want to use my shield just yet, because I haven't seen his last Pokemon. And then I fire off my Fire Punch right before he reaches next superpower. So my opponent has a Dialga, and at this point it's pretty much a 50-50 if my opponent thinks that the first or second charge move is a bait. And my opponent didn't shield, so that's amazing for me. And I got a little lucky. Next up in the last game of the set is against Maximi Pilgrim, and she leads with Groudon. So this is a neutral lead. Groudon wins the one shield scenario if it times the Fire Punches correctly, but it seems like my opponent does not want to stay in that matchup, and she switches into Dialga. So I stay for a few charms so that the Dialga is low enough for Groudon to finish it with a Fire Punch. And my opponent even goes for the Draco Meteor, so that's amazing for me, because now I can pretty much risk-free overcharge a ton of energy and have an Earthquake ready. And then when my opponent goes back to the Groudon, I can fire off my Earthquake, and it seems like she has given up. And I'm pretty much forced to shield this Earthquake, since I don't want to face off against a double shielded Melmetal without Groudon, in case my opponent had that. But my opponent had a Togekiss instead, so that's great for me. I will be able to chunk down with charms, and then I have a good chance to reach 2 Fire Punches here, and my opponent is not going to use their energy, since the only hope is to somehow use some charge moves on Togekiss on my last Pokemon. And that's it for this 5-0 run with Togekiss, Dialga and Groudon, which is a part of a 10-game win streak. Thanks for watching.